Hola and dumelang and welcome all to this month's episode of the IAB Insights series. I am your host, Tshegofatso Phetlhe, and today on this beautiful day in October, our conversation is led by the IAB SA Digital Influencer Committee, who provide an organizing structure to enable the discussions and development of guidelines, best practice and benchmarking for digital influencer marketing in South Africa. How are all of you doing? We will be hearing about the latest definitions and guidelines, case studies on best practice, and we've been working with influencers in the digital space, and most importantly, gaining insights to the opportunity in the digital influencer marketing space. Our guests today are Stefan Rogovsky, who is CEO and founder of R Squared, Ryan Feek-Fortune, who is head of brand strategy at Dynamo Johannesburg, and Brian Muguto, who will be joining us for our panel as Chief Strategy Officer at Mediacom. Welcome all, and we look forward to engaging with your insights. This episode is brought to you by Gumtree, Everlytic, and Bizcommunity, and the 2021 IAB Insights series is also approved for 2 CPD points at CMSA level under marketing by the Marketing Association of South Africa. Now for some house rules. For those new and for those old, just like pretend this is the air hostess giving you directions on how and what to do during an emergency, but and take some notes for your insights. So there will be a poll during our session, and this will be like a pop-up, so don't be alarmed when you see it. Simply a way of interacting and engaging with all of you. And the Q&A option is down here below, so do jump in with your questions after every session, and they will be addressed at the end of the last speaker. Do engage with us on at IAB_SA on Twitter, and the hashtag is IAB Insights. A feedback survey will also be shared at the end of the show, just to gauge y'all's experience on the webinar. So do fill it out when you have the chance. Right, let's get started. Our keynote speaker today is Stefan Rogovsky, who is CEO and founder of R Squared, IAB SA Digital Influencer Committee Chair. Stefan was one of the first influencers in pivoting after 13 years in finance and senior management experience in a Swiss private bank. He switched to marketing in 2014 with the founding of R Squared, a global leading influencer marketing agency with offices in Cape Town and London. His strong roots in the finance sector, combined with 15 years of leadership experience, strategic foresight, and analytical abilities, contributed to his listing in top 50 global industry players in influencer marketing in 2019 and 2020. Stefan is the head of the IAB SA Digital Influencer Marketing Committee and is a member of the IAB France Influencer Marketing Task Force, and is leading the production of a buyer's guide to influencer marketing with IAB Europe. Stefan is passionate about his work with the industry on establishing standards, growing industry maturity, and considers this work his main priority for the next year. Stefan, hello, and thank you for joining us.
Hello, and thank you for this introduction. It's a pleasure to be here.
No problem. Thank you for joining us. Take the stage.
Can you see my screen? Because it did work when you tried, and now it's all black.
Give it a second. It is going all black. Do you mind going to the next slide? Maybe it's going through a bit of what Zoom does best when you're on camera. Okay. It seems to only show us. There you go. It's back.
Is it back? Okay.
Over to you.
Cool. Well, thank you, and good morning, everyone. I hope that will be an extremely interesting session. I'm going to speak today about the definitions for influencer marketing that we have set together with the Influencer Marketing Committee, Digital Influencer Marketing Committee with the IAB. Heads up first, in case for those who do not know me yet and who have not realized it by now, I have a strong accent. I speak French. Normally, I work with Danilo as my official translators. You can always answer questions for me. Otherwise, please do not hesitate to ask any questions or to ask me to repeat in the chat, and I'll obviously clarify what needs to be. So, what about the Digital Influencer Marketing Committee with the IAB? It started by the fact that influencer marketing is an extremely immature industry. It's pretty new compared to other digital segments. And there was no common definitions, there was no common best practice, there was no real understanding of how to address the metrics, are they the same as digital or not, etc. So the IAB decided to create an influencer marketing committee, which roles is, as you can see here, to provide clearly defined and commonly agreed guidelines, standard best practice definitions and benchmark to the marketing community. So I'm going to speed up because I only have 15 minutes, I think. So let's go to the core of the topic. So the first way, our mission is to address several milestones, if I may say. As I was saying, there are the metrics, there are the best practice, there are the regulatory topics, etc. But before defining the metrics, we needed to work on setting the context. What are we defining? Basically, what is influencer marketing? What are the categories of influencer marketing? And where are the limitations and where it starts and when it ends? So this is the work that I'm going to present today. And the objective was to develop a common set of definitions and terms for the industry. And for my own experience, as I'm managing an influencer marketing agency, I can see regularly I will sit in to the table or virtual table with a media agency, a creative agency, a brand, us, sometimes a PR agency, and other industry players, and realize that we might all use the same terms: macro influencer, celebrities, level of tiers, etc. But that people are actually using the same terms and meaning or understanding something different, or having a different perception of what the term means. So it was very important to clarify and to harmonize all of this, to obviously make sure that everyone speaks the same language, to grow the industry better and to reduce risk and any problem. So the first definition that we worked on was as simple as that. What is influencer marketing? And we came to because here we have also so many debates in the industry. Yes, but we work with a celebrity on a TV. Oh, sorry, really not the right time. Visitors now, non-expected. Celebrities sometimes in a TV spot. I'm really sorry, this is really not expected. I need to say that I can't say them right now.
It's okay.
I'm speaking at a conference.
It's okay, don't stress.
Right now. And activating the dogs. So what I was saying is celebrities speaking or working in a TVC. Is it influencer marketing? Is it not influencer marketing? Speaking their own language on their own social media platform. Where is the limit? So we've established that influencer marketing is not the principle of working with influencers, but it is the practice of influencer marketing. And you may still work with influencers or celebrities on a TVC, on radio, and in other segments, and they will do an amazing work. But the practice of influencer marketing is defined as an influencer who will share own words in own style to own audience. So if you have a celebrity speaking to on TV in a scripted message, it's not own word and it's not own audience. Now, if the same person endorses the brand in his or her own style on social media, saying, guys, I've just discovered this brand or this product, and I think it's amazing. You should look at it. Captive audience and a personal message. Obviously, we live in an integrated world, so there are ways to integrate various segments and to obviously amplify the message in various channels that are not captive audience. But then it will just be the effect of integration, and it will not be purely influencer marketing, but it will be influencer marketing integrated with or within. So moving on to the categories, and the work that we've done here is there is a common perception when speaking globally, because as explained, I'm working also on this work in Europe. When asking about categories of influencers, very often I will hear there's celebrities, macro influencers, micro influencers, and nano influencers. And the problem that we've been facing here is that celebrities is a status, is fame-based, but macro, micro, and nano are actually indicators of size. It's not a status. So it was speaking about comparing pears and apples, because you might have a celebrity who is super popular on on TV or in cinema or on the radio or a DJ, but he's actually not so present on social media. And so they might have much less followers than the very big influencers. So celebrities is actually not a good proxy for a size, and it's a category, it's not a measurement. So we've defined them as celebrities, social media influencers, experts, and customers. And we've worked on defining the categories, but also in defining the tiers, because you also still need to know what is the size of the influencer. So now you can work on them together without any confusion. The first category, are the celebrities, as I was saying. And a celebrity is someone who is followed mainly because of a professional activity as being famous. An actor, a DJ, a TV presenter, etc. They are not being followed on social media mainly because of the social media activity or because of their specific opinion or expertise in a topic, let's say travel for a travel influencer, or beauty or food or whatever. They're being followed because they're famous and they're popular. So social media influencers, on the other hand, are influencers who are being mainly followed for their social media activity. They may or not be a celebrity and popular in the media, but they have a captive audience, and they've grown a captive audience of people who like what they do in the way they do it, and they've started growing their audience in this way. This is not fame-based. This is, I'm following the person on social media because I like what they're doing on social media. Now, the third category are the experts. And the expert is a social media influencers who has academic or a professional expertise in a specific domain. And here the difference will be, so I'll put a picture of someone who is a personal trainer, and that will make the difference. If you have a celebrity who is a social media influencer who has a gym bunny, has an Instagram feed with a lot of pictures around exercising, around gym, etc., but is not a health professional, then you would be a social media influencer who is passionate about exercising. Now, if you work with a celebrity, with an expert who is a how do you call this again? Personal trainer, as I was saying, then this person is being followed for a professional or an academic expertise and can be recognized as such as an expert. So the two categories can actually be rolled out and explained in which one do I need for my campaign? Do I need someone who is really an expert or who is passionate? It tells you really a lot about it. How do I do with time?
You're still doing good. You're still doing good. Yes.
Okay. Hey, so the same person can be used differently. For example, this personal trainer, when endorsing a brand, let's say Virgin Active, will be used as an expert. Now, this person as endorsing a car brand is not a car expert, and then would be a social media influencer. So it's not defined in the person is one or the other, except for celebrity, but it's more on what does the person bring in the campaign. And by identifying these categories, now you have in a campaign, you will have, let's say, one celebrity, one social media influencer, and one expert. And you would know that the celebrity will bring the fame and the reach and associate a great name with the brand, while the social media influencer will associate a passion and a personal interest, and the expert will actually speak as an expert. So in planning and running on a campaign and adding on relevance and authenticity, you can go much deeper into details. The last category are the customers, and there were quite a lot of debates here around influence versus influencer. People have influence when they are at home with their spouse, with their kids, with their friends, etc., and they endorse a brand offline to their friends. It's influence. But on the other hand, we don't know whom or in which context. If you have an event and everyone can come and the people are asked to share on social media, etc., but it's like randomly can be anyone, that would most likely fall into customer advocacy or brand advocacy. We've defined that customers can be influencers when it is associated with a formal relationship. So what does it mean? It means that if the brand or the marketer identify a customer and say, okay, I would like you to endorse the brand. Please share 2 or 3 posts on your social media to speak to your friend. Maybe we also want to wrap your car or whatever. There is this formal agreement and personal relationship between the marketer or the brand and the customer. There is an agreement. If it's anyone who would like to create positive noise around the brand, that would not be influencer marketing. So how do we define the tiers there? Because as I was saying, you may have very large celebrities and celebrities with a small social media audience. In the same way, you can have like very large social media influencers who are bigger than celebrities and vice versa. So we work on this in combination, the categories with the tiers. So these tiers are not perfect because every single platform has different reality. You will obviously can have I'm not sure if in English you say many more, a lot more, let's say, followers on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook that you will have on Twitch or on TikTok. Sometimes it depends. So it all very depending. However, we still had to define something. So we defined that those are the tiers that still need to be named, and that can be worked as a standard in combination with the categories. The idea there is to say that the categories are holistic and can be global. A celebrity in South Africa is a celebrity in the United States or in Panama or in Japan. Everyone will understand a celebrity or social media influencers in the same way. However, tiers are extremely dependent on the time. Like this year, the tiers might be different than next year. And in the country, 2 million followers in South Africa is very big. It's not as big for the United States, and it corresponds to the entire population of actually 10 times the population of Luxembourg. So it needs to be considered per the period and per the country. But the categories are it could be the same all over the world. So how to use them together? As I was saying, you may have, if in your list of influencers, you have let's say here, we can see that tier 3 is 10,000 to 50,000 followers, then a celebrity tier 3 will be a celebrity who has a social media presence of 10,000 to 50,000 followers. On the other hand, I'm actually skipping that slide, sorry, just like so you can see the metrics. If you work with a social media influencers who is a tier 6, then now you know that in your combination of influencer in the campaign, you have one social media influencer who is bringing passion and has a super big reach, while the celebrity is bringing a public image with a smaller reach, but with this positive public image. And maybe you will also have into this an expert who is a tier 4, and that person is recognized as an authority maybe in the industry, and that's why he or she has so many followers, and actually maybe even more than the celebrity. So by working the two tiers and categories together, you can get a very clear picture on who can achieve what and how do they fit within the campaign or within your objective. Getting to the end of my presentation. So they are, as soon as we have finished, by the way, working on all the definitions, then there's another very big trending topic that came all over the world. Speaking about definitions, okay, influencers, it's nice to define what is an influencer, but should we call them influencers or content creator? And there are very big debates here. So all social media platforms will argue that they should be content creators, and many influencers also don't like to be called influencers, they would like to be called content creators. But from a platform point of view, social media platform, it makes sense because what influencers do on social media, so on their platform, is create content. On the other hand, from a marketer point of view, what you expect influencers to do is resonate with the audience and influence. So the debate here is on should they be named as per category per what they do, or what is their objective? It's a global debate right now, and there is no clear answer for this. So this is where we're saying that there would be a poll. Can you, I don't know who will do it, Danilo, but can you maybe bring the poll here? So what do you think? What do you recommend? Again, there is no right or wrong choice. It's a global debate. So let's give you a few seconds to answer that. We're going to share the, Danilo is going to share the results. I don't know, you tell me, Danilo, 5, 10 seconds, 15?
We're at 50% of our participants have already voted. I'm just going to wait for at least 65%.
Come on, influencer or content creator. I'm not going to share my opinion here. Do not influence anyone. We were doing it. Exactly. So it exactly represents what I was saying as how passionate the debate is globally. There are people strongly arguing for influencers like me, people strongly arguing for content creator like many digital marketers on social media platforms, but there is no real common agreement because the two have positive argument and make sense in that way. So that will be quite of a big debate over the next few months globally, and we'll probably have more debates and discussions around this to share with you in the future or over 2022. So we've achieved with, do I don't have control anymore? Oh yeah. So with the Digital Influencer Marketing Committee, we have achieved this part on the definitions. Now the next big piece of work is obviously working on the metrics, because so many metrics, the digital metrics exist and also apply to influencer marketing, but the dynamic is different. They react different. So we are currently working on how to interpret them. What does the metric tell you and don't tell you compared to digital or other segment of digital marketing? Can you compare the two or not, etc.? This will be the work that will be presented in a couple of months with the IAB. Then the best practice, followed by the rules and regulation, a final code of practice to anyone to agree from marketer to influencers. And then it will finish with a final white paper, before starting everything again, because it's a very dynamic industry. And as you were saying, as we've just finished on the definition, then there's another debate about the definition of influencers. So it will be dynamic and reviewed regularly. I hope that I did well for time. That's it for me. If you have any question or any topic that you want to address, those are my contact details. You can obviously drop them in the chat here, but very happy to address this, whether from an IAB point of view or just as an influencer marketer. Thank you, everyone. I hope that it was good.
Thank you so much, Stefan. I think your dog was trying to get in on the debate between content creator and influencer early. So yes. It's okay. We counted his votes.
Sorry.
It's okay. Thank you so much. And to our audience, please do enter your questions below for Stefan, and we'll be sure to pose them to him and the rest of the panel a little later on. Cool. Our next speaker is Ryan Fortune, who is the head of brand strategy at Dynamo Johannesburg. And his bio usually goes in a tweet into new dad, typical millennial and creative communicator. But we asked him for a little bit more because we know there's a little bit more behind the man. Ryan is a culture observer with a passion for developing unconventional strategies to solve business problems and connecting people to meaningful brand experiences. Having discovered strategy very late in his career, the foundation of his approach is focused on the meeting points between people and media, guiding partners through the digital media environments to inspire great ideas. As the head of brand strategy at Dynamo, he oversees the creative and strategic excellence with partners, guiding them towards maximizing their presence across Twitter, especially after the other day shut down, and on Snapchat, Spotify, and Yahoo. Ryan, welcome, and how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
No problem. The stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much for letting me to come share today. I know we don't have much time, but the title of my talk today is going to be, it's not what you know, it's who you know, with focus on Twitter. And so Twitter is very much kind of a canvas centered around driving conversation. And influencers are very much masters of generating these conversations and using Twitter to connect directly with their audiences. One of the first key points of departure, I think, for our chat is that we need to understand that we live in this hyper-globalized world, and that our opinions are not just shaped by branded advertising. It's very much shaped by almost everything. And influence play a massive role in terms of influencing how we discover new content, trends, brands, products. And this also really much helps us in terms of impacting how we choose to even identify as people. And so influencers drive culture and use Twitter in a way to share these passions, interests, and fuel their fans to be part of this public conversation. I think when it comes to Twitter and influence, it's very much I think people are very much different in the sense, and that Twitter is where influencers very much let their hair down. It's their real versus ideal, and then there's opportunities for brands to create genuine partnerships where influencer voices can be the core to your creative message or your campaign. And so while users of other platforms have very much look at me attitude, people on Twitter are very much about looking at this, and they come to Twitter hungry for information and connection to the world around them. They shape movements, memes, and even conversations that drives news and culture. And so Twitter is very much this mass influence, this engine of mass influence, and it's very much tied, I guess, to culture. I'm going to tackle a little bit into culture before kind of getting into the nuts and bolts of Twitter's role in there. And I think that framework can also be applied to other social media platforms and other digital ecosystems. And the first point of contact is really for us to understand, this culture of closeness that we have with each other now. And it's this notion that culture exists in 4 categories, and where everything in the world intersects from one another. And to understand that in a bit more deep and take it to a further level is that, the culture of proximity explains culture in these 4 key ways. Close culture, which is, our shared and our immediate circle, like friends and family. There's mass culture that is shared and consumed by all of us, and that's usually driven by above the line media. And then there's crowd culture, and this is the culture that we create together, and this is everyone involved in this creation of this culture, and it has the largest impact on the former of mass culture. Recent examples could be the looting that took place earlier this year, Black Lives Matter movement as well, and so any kind of trending hashtags and slang and new information and new phrases that enter into this kind of popular culture dialogue. And then finally we have deep culture, and deep culture represents these subcultures drawn together by a shared experience, and these come in the form of fandoms, support groups, and this is where those who share specific interests consume and collaborate. And this is really very much where magic happens from an influencer perspective or a content creator perspective. To look at the impact of influencers, particularly within the Twitter spaces, in a global Twitter study conducted by Magna Media Labs, 2 in 3 Twitter users agree that content creators change and shape culture. And so influence can now come from anywhere or anything, and forcing those who used to own this mass culture, being celebrities, politicians, to kind of actually stop and take note of this burgeoning community of people who are flooding our timelines with new content every single day. And so Twitter's place there is that it's a different form of self-expression of this entire community and culture. And so in 2021, what we're seeing is that we want to be able to see this brands moving the needle almost on kind of inclusion and diversity from an influencer partnership perspective. And so leveraging influential voices to connect with your community in a quite authentic way. And so I think one of the key things, particularly within the South African perspective, is understanding is that we have very much a poverty of trust situation within the South African perspective. Is that South Africans' trust in public institutions and brands is very much at an all-time low, sitting particularly within public institutions, is sitting at about 14%. And so trust plays a huge role in creating salience between your desired audience and your brand. And so this is very much an opportunity for us to be able to leverage influencers in our strategy. And we'll go through a few examples of what that really looks like. And so people come to Twitter to be entertained and informed. Influencers use Twitter to talk about the things that they care about. And some of the things that they care about are a diverse range of passions and interests. And here's just kind of a list of some of those passions and interests from an influencer perspective in terms of accounts that people actually follow and engage with content regularly. So we're looking at things from actors and performers to food personalities to bands, musicians, and music is a really huge, impactful source of inspiration for a lot of content creation. There are those content creators and influencers from a lifestyle perspective as well. You have fitness experts, which Stefan touched on earlier as well in his analogy. Sports teams and personalities, which play a huge role within the South African context. You also have your celebrities there within in the mix. You have beauty and fashion. And something that's really interesting is meme and parody accounts, which I'll take you through an example of. And so the range in terms of why people are coming and engaging with influencers, they are kind of over a course of a very kind of diverse or niche ranging a multitude of passions associated with these communities. And the two most motivating reasons as to why we still kind of engage with influencers is that we're in a constant state of content discovery, and also we are living in a society where we don't want to miss out at all. And so FOMO plays a really huge role. And a really example of this globally, before I get into any kind of local case studies, is what happened at the Met Gala. If anyone was on social media when this happened, this very much gave us the content that we as a world didn't know that we actually needed. And so here's an example of Saint Hoax, who was the first ever meme correspondent at the Met Gala. And I think that, as I mentioned earlier, I think this is a really nice and influential kind of, content format, and very much touches on influencers' ability to also be social commentators on what is happening. And so, when live events and tentpole cultural moments happen, people come to Twitter to engage with them first, because that's where the news breaks. And so everything from, Nicki Minaj's philosophy on, vaccine and information around, the vaccine was something that came up on the red carpet. I'm pretty sure all of us had a look at terms of, what was Kim Kardashian wearing? Is this the future of fashion? And that also sparked a lot of debate in terms of representation and, how celebrities represent themselves from a fashion perspective as well. And so, one thing is very clear is that influencers very much command attention when we speak about content. With attention shifting from traditional media and accelerating towards these creator-driven channels, the most talked about campaigns really much focus on finding the right talent with the most relevant connections. And so creators and influencers are now these mainstream personalities who have this real world influence. And something that I thought is really, really, really important, I think, and to kind of take away, and this is a very simplified framework, but I think it's something that can be applied to almost every single campaign where there's an influencer or content creator involved. And in the middle of this process is this sense of kind of authenticity, because I think people can smell BS from a mile away, and so it's very important that we find the right mix of a partner to partner with in order to make sure that the content delivery is delivered in such an authentic and an honest way. And so this framework can be applied to nearly every channel, and it focuses very much on kind of the common threads within your collaboration and partnership, where the impact is bringing something innovative, new, and original to timelines. And it's the meeting point of your brand purpose, your marketing message, and your influencer's passion point or community. And a really good example of this is something that was run in South Africa this year during the final stages of the knockout stages during the UEFA Champions League. Heineken worked with football personalities globally, and this is Heineken South Africa, working with the likes of Cesc Fabregas, Yaya Toure, Michael Owen, who've all really impacted the sport of football globally, winning multiple accolades. And so they're very much, I think, credible. They have the credibility to speak very, very credibly on a lot of these issues, particularly with football. And what's really nice and powerful about this campaign is that football fans don't necessarily need a reason to share their opinion on a game. And so what Heineken did was leverage, their very own hashtag during the stage of the tournament, and leveraging some of the existing second screen behaviors. There was a live commentary stream throughout Twitter during a milestone and peak games during the knockout stages. And so influencers like the likes of Cesc Fabregas, who's a world-class football player, would intercede in some of the conversations here as well and reward participants with prizes for sharing commentary and opinions that they thought were really interesting or insightful to the game that was currently happening. And they would facilitate that. And so what we see here is, influencer, passion point, brand purpose, and marketing message, coming here to kind of add a different layer and create value on the timeline, doing a really important cultural moment for sports fans that was aligned very much with Heineken's sponsorship objectives. Another really great thing about this was that we added another layer to this campaign with the inclusion of something called a custom emoji. And so when users retweeted this custom emoji, they would be rewarded and unlock. When they would tweet with the hashtag, they would unlock this custom emoji. And so that also kind of created a sense of kind of a curiosity and content discovery. And I think this campaign saw over 70% in earned media achieved because of its impact and because it's leveraged the right voices to connect with those footballing audiences. And so if I could leave you with three really important things, and also Twitter's philosophy when it comes to partnering with influencers and content creators. Again, this is something that very much can be applied to multiple channels, depending on who you're collaborating with. But there are three key pillars to driving success here. And now first is, talking about launch and tapping into the creative perspective of your influencer to craft a compelling message. What aspect that's happening in the world are you wanting to connect with? The second part is connection and leveraging authentic voices during these tentpole moments, like we saw in the previous example, to drive engagement and to kind of start that movement and that conversation to spark and continue on organically. And the third part is also, ensuring purpose. That purpose is also very much at the core of why you are collaborating, ensuring that the authenticity of your influencers' voices to create that personal connection with their fans is very much there, following on that framework that we've discussed earlier. But underpinning these three things is very much collaboration and partnership. And I'll leave you, with this as I wrap up my talk with you today. Is that, science author and media theorist, Stephen Johnson, he asked the question of how to become creative, have better ideas, and make our work more innovative. And I think that's also a question we ask ourselves as an industry very often. And his question brought him to explore the architecture of spaces. Where do great ideas come from? And this is one of the first cafes to open in London in the 17th century. And up until this point, the majority of people there were drinking alcohol. And so, the reason for that was because, water wasn't safe to drink, and modern medicine as we understand it today just did not exist. But, the coffee house was one of the most influential spaces that led to the rise of one of the most influential periods of innovation and creativity in Europe, and that was the Enlightenment. And the space became an environment where people from different backgrounds would share ideas and engage in conversation. And we are trying to do that for our clients and for our campaigns and for our creative work. And so I think it's really important that we have this framework for effective collaboration set in place because it allows for creativity to flourish. I mean, that's the reason why we work in this industry, is our love and our shared love for innovative and new ideas. Because, without that, there is no real impact. And so I hope that leaves you with something today. And it was really great. It was a hell of a lot to cover, but I hope I covered it in 15 minutes. And so, yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that, Ryan. I think that already, for me, sparked enough questions. And to our audience, if you have any more, please include them in the Q&A as we go into that. But we will be having a surprise guest as part of our panelists, and that is Brian Muguto, who is Chief Strategy Officer at Mediacom and IAB SA Digital Influencer Marketing Council member. Having started agency life as a digital strategist, Brian has established himself as a proven business accelerator with over 13 years of marketing experience. In his role as Chief Strategy Officer at Mediacom, he is tasked with driving change and unlocking growth for the agency, clients, and their brands, setting the vision for the agency's evolution, and challenging and inspiring his colleagues to deliver data-led solutions that are rooted in culture and creativity. Brian is a champion for diversity and inclusion, sitting on Mediacom's Global Belonging Council and helping to make it the most representative agency in the world. Outside of his work, Brian is passionate about finding African solutions to African problems by transferring his experience into entrepreneurial ventures, such as Zimbabwean-born tech startup, Yaita. Brian, thank you for joining us. And I will pose to you our first question. Give me a second. How are you doing? Sorry, let me first.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Right. So first question to you. Can a local business use influencer marketing, or is it just for big corporates?
The simple answer is that influencer marketing is for everyone. I think gone are the days where the only option that you had was going to like a celeb, call it a DJ Fresh or somebody like that, where you had to pay thousands and thousands of rand for one simple tweet. I think the landscape over the years has sort of equalized, allowing more people to enter the space. And I think, Stefan was talking earlier on about the different tiers of influencers. And I think right now is the rise of nano and micro influencers especially means that there's a lot of people that you can actually connect with, whether it's on a national level or hyper locally, that can help a small business get into influencer marketing. I think also it makes it more affordable. So definitely when you're looking at nano micro influencers, you're not having to pay as much. It makes it more flexible. Please excuse me. The fact that they are in local proximity, they're the kind of people that you can speak to. You can have closer discussions about the kind of content that you want to generate and the kind of messages that you want to put together, and work collaboratively to put your messages out there. And then just lastly as well, I think a thought for small business owners is also the fact that you have a personal brand and you can be an influencer in your own right for your own business. And I think people shouldn't discount the power of their own knowledge and expertise in the specific space that they're in.
Now, with that in mind, when should someone then include influencer marketing in their planning? So in the planning process, beginning, end, middle?
Yeah, I mean, when there's also, I suppose, the question of why, but when, I think, the thing with any media planning from my point of view or marketing planning is that we shouldn't be looking at channels as silos. I think that age is past now. We should be thinking about a communication ecosystem that's interlinked with each piece contributing equally or its own part to delivering your message or delivering your brand and business objectives. So at Mediacom, for example, we've brought influencer marketing right at the beginning of the planning process, as much as looking at any other channel. And really it's about starting with understanding what the business challenges, what the consumer challenges, and then understanding what role influencer marketing can play, if any, within the solution that you're trying to build for that specific instance.
Thank you for that answer. Now to Stefan, this is from Welsh Mukomba Choto. I hope I didn't butcher your surname. Can the importance of the tiers also be determined by the type of platform that they are on?
Absolutely. So everything, and that's what I was saying about the tiers is, while we can speak for the categories about something that is set and I don't want to use strict, but that is really confirmed in a way. The tiers need to be taken as an information, useful information, but not as a strict guidelines. So platform changes, country changes, and also just the dynamic of each influencer and of each platform. As we're speaking for Twitch, for example, Twitch is a platform where you will work with influencers who are expert in gaming, for example. So here you will speak with people who are much more specialized and in niche, so less less followers in a way, but more impact in the gaming segment. If you use them for other industries than gaming, then obviously start to compete with other platforms. So there's quite a lot of consideration to have between the platform, the size, the impact and the relevance that influencers have on or the expertise on a specific topic or brand compared to others. But it's still a useful information, I think.
Thank you. And then this is to Ryan. What do you believe is the most urgent priority for the industry to solve in digital influencer marketing?
Oh my gosh, that's a big question. Sure. I think you need to understand why you're wanting to partner with an influencer. I think yes, influencers allow you, and I think we talk about media mechanics and stuff. It gives you that incremental reach. It gives you access to an audience that you not necessarily able to connect with. But I think we really need to interrogate why we're actually collaborating in the first place, and what is the nature of this collaboration. Because you kind of going back to having that same argument as you're looking for a brand ambassador, for someone to read a script, or are we collaborating with someone who's going to take the value, our message and our brand, and kind of create something and bring something new content into our timelines. And so I think it's not necessarily something that it's not a trend or thing that you need to just jump onto because everyone's doing it or talking about it. It really needs to be something that's very kind of considered. And I think that our reasons why we need to collaborate and partner needs to be interrogated. And I think there needs to be that synergy. I think we go back to that framework. Does my brand purpose and campaign message align with this person's talent or a sense of credibility that we don't have? And does it converge to kind of create this amazing sweet spot where great content happens? And I think that's one of the things I think we very much need to, because what happens and what tends to happen, and I've seen this, is influencers will if a job's paying, they'll accept it. It doesn't matter if they've worked with a competitor brand either. And so we need to also understand that they're also functioning at a point where as businesses. And so for us, it's being able to understand, we don't want to use the same faces that our competitors or every other brand in South Africa this year has used, but really finding the right voice and the right influential voice that's going to add value, not necessarily just be another media channel that we need to allocate budget for. I think the value of why we're collaborating is that content or that product or that experience that our audiences have never seen or never experienced before. And that's we need to really kind of look at that motivation.
Thank you. And for Brian, can influencer marketing help with your SEO, especially when we're interrogating influencers who work on X amount of brands? So
yeah, I mean, if we look at any search engine, we won't get into the argument of algorithms and what they're looking for, but if you were to oversimplify it, it's a combination of expertise, authority, and trustworthiness, right? So if you can find somebody who is close to adding those values, to Ryan's point, in the space that you want to communicate with, or has a reputation with the community that you want to communicate with, then definitely you can partner with them to produce the kind of content that is going to add value to your content, whether it's on your website, or on your blog, or whatever it is. Ultimately, there are different things that you can do. So whether it's getting somebody to amplify existing content that your brand has produced because they're a voice of authority that people are going to receive it better. It could be that they're creating original content for your business, based on a specific topic and based on that authority that they have. So the key thing is, are they using the right keywords? Are they using quality backlinks to your website or your blog so that it can contribute to those search rankings? But ultimately, if you were to sum it up, I think, the old adage goes, content is king. And if we go back to the debate about, is it an influencer or is it a content creator? These guys are creating a ton of content which can feed into and more than supplement what you can potentially in some cases do as a brand yourself. So it definitely gives you more spread in terms of the content out there. And as well as long as you're following the right principles in terms of how that content is being developed and placed and redirected back to your platforms, then definitely it's going to contribute to SEO and your SEO efforts.
Thank you. And
Can I
to
add
our
something on
audience.
this?
Oh, yes, please do.
Just a quick one is influencers, or as Brian was saying before, is very often used in silo from other segments. Now, what happened with influencer marketing is that very often it's used for awareness and consideration, or to drive traffic, but just to drive traffic to the website without any further integration. While it could actually also be considered in some cases, depending on the brand objective and strategy, why not integrating influencer marketing in a remarketing as a starting point for a remarketing strategy? So there's a lot of advertising, there's a lot of noise around advertising, etc. Now the audience sees so many brands and advertising, which one do they choose? Now the influencer can actually convince them to, you know about all of these brands, just look at this one, click on the website, and now they enter into a remarketing strategy, which could also very much help with this, with the SEO. So those are my 2 cents.
Thank you. And now I'll go to our next question, which I will pose to Ryan. If not, please, other panelists jump in. And this is from Terry Levin, and they ask, in companies, do social media and community managers act as content creators or influencers, or are they 2 different disciplines?
Sure. Can you repeat the question, Dave, quickly? Sorry.
In companies, like, so I guess they're asking in the agency context, do social media or community managers act as content creators or influencers for their brands, or do they become 2 different disciplines?
Yeah, I think we're community managers and social media managers come in as managing the media, right? Managing conversation. I think the key thing from a social media manager perspective is, I think, and we've seen a few examples of this throughout the year where brands are really quick, and it's ensuring that those people within your business are very much have an ear and eye for what is happening and what is being spoken about, because it's within those key moments where a brand can kind of almost insert itself in to be relevant. So I think something we all can relate to if you love music was the Certified Lover Boy cover art by Drake. And there were multiple brands, and I can assure you that was driven by social media managers and community managers who identified an opportunity, and then kind of obviously went through the right channels. I think obviously depending where you work, and then responding that with great content that's timely and very culturally relevant to what people were talking about at that stage. So I hope that answers the question.
It does. Thank you. And then this one is from Cheryl van der Merwe, and I'll pose it to Brian. Would you recommend influencer marketing for a B2B brand?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the ingredients that I think a lot of us have touched on as we've spoken around, being a credible or trusted voice and that sort of thing. So those are values that B2B brands need just as much as anybody else. I actually started my career in marketing working for a company that sells engineering products in the oil and gas industry. And we worked with influencers. We sponsored, for example, a Scottish Rally Championship driver. And we use them to come and speak about our products and the way the products are helping them in their quest for racing championship, right? So as long as you can connect the dots to what your product is or what your brand is all about to the person that can be, sort of like bridge between your brand and the community that you're trying to connect to, then certainly you can find an influential or influencer who can come through and add value to the communication tasks or objectives that your brand has.
Stefan, anything to add?
Yes, so very, very correct, Brian, full agreement with this. Just on the principle of influencer marketing, it is to share or to provide an opinion, an expert opinion on whatever. So to me, there is just no segment or no industry that can say, my sales or my brand cannot benefit from the expertise or from an opinion from someone. It just applies to absolutely everything. B2B it follows a different dynamic and set of rules. So here you are much less into these influencers is cool, is fashionable, and I like what they do. But it follows more rules of corporate purchasing decisions. Service level agreement, the quality, if it needs to integrate a service into another, etc. So they are like much more factual decisions. And the influencers will also, you have different categories. You can have the keynote speakers and the expert in specific B2B topics, lots in digital or ICT, etc. But otherwise, very often you will find that the influencers are influential because of their job function. Let's say the CTO at a big brand when it comes to something IT, but not because of who they are as a person. It's not their name that is important, is their job function. This is where the credibility comes, which comes with different challenges, because then now, well, the influencers speak on behalf of his or her own opinion or on behalf of the brand because it represents the company. Now, is the company actually using that brand or not? So there's quite a lot of different consideration, and the rollout is very, very different depending on the industry, etc. So short answer, yet it can apply, but very efficiently, but very differently.
Thank you.
It was not so short actually, but yes.
Yes, Brian.
Just one last thing. I think Stefan sort of hinted at it, but probably didn't call it out, loud and proud. But I think it's this thing about an influencer is somewhere out there. But in fact, there are a lot of businesses that actually have, if you like, thought leaders or key opinion leaders who are actually sitting within their own ranks. You see it a lot in, banking and investments and the finance industry, where you have, like an analyst, for example, who speaks frequently about what are the trends that are happening in finance. And those people are trusted voices within that industry or category. So sometimes you don't have to look so far to find the people who act as influencers for your business or your brand.
Sure. Now, this one is from Kami Mkize, and it's to Ryan. Should it be our responsibility as clients to prep or train our influencers on Twitter bullying? Because we see a lot of this happen in that space, as one inappropriate response can actually then tarnish your brand.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you obviously don't want someone speaking negatively. And we know that it's happened when someone said something that's very insensitive or not aligned with the brand values. And so I think there very much needs to be, I think it's a balancing act between providing influencers guidelines with key messaging, and things that are just non-negotiables. But also I think allowing them and giving them that space to interpret that message and that content that is, I think, still kind of respectful and still, does what it's designed to do. And so it's something that I think usually gets completely forgotten, and I'll always recommend that there is a kind of a guideline and kind of a briefing document to at least kind of prepare what type of content, because I think obviously this type of content needs to be approved by how many 20 people at agency and client before it goes out. And maybe if you're a big enough business, maybe even your legal team needs to have a look at that content and evaluate it. And so I think it's to the point. I think it's just that balancing act, having a kind of a guideline which will align with your vision for success for your content, but also I think giving influence to that space. And Donovan Goliath is a really great example of someone who whose content is just, it's amazing. He's the brands that he works with, they are kind of strict guidelines in terms of messaging, etc., and hashtags and what have you. But his content speaks and is translated beautifully into that space, and people come to his timeline for more. So yeah.
Thank you. And then last question. I know everyone, we love the engagement, and we will get to some of them probably offline, but this one is to Stefan. What can brands do to help combat influencer marketing saturation?
Authenticity. And I think that is a key word. So influencer marketing has been an extremely fast-growing industry, probably the fast-growing segment of digital. Its 1.6 global spend was its $1.65 billion in 2016. Is expected to finish to and above 14 billion in 2021. So just in 5 years, you're not yet to 10 times more, but almost. And it comes. So what happened is that now everyone who has a smartphone basically can expect or hope becoming an influencer. And there's been this rush to so many people want to be an influencer, want to grow their audience, and then as they do and they start being approaching by brands, some will stick to who they are and only endorse brands who they really relate to, really affiliate, really like, and others will start endorsing every single product or every single brand that are ready to pay, for good or for bad reasons. Sometimes it's because I'm greediness or being greedy, and other times because they value authenticity, but on the other hand need to put food on the table. So there are whatever the reason, but the reality is that influencers who take brands or products or campaigns that they do not really affiliate with eventually alienate their audience, because their audience follow them because they like what they do, they like their recommendation, they like the tone of voice, and they like who they are. Now, the day they start actually sharing opinions that actually do not really align with what they really think, the followers will immediately see through it. So they will start alienating their audience, but also damaging the brand, because it also says, well, from the brands, could you not find someone who really liked the brand that you had to pay someone to pretend? So I think that there is now a very big trend on going to much more authentic influencers. Ideally, you want influencers to be ready to endorse a brand for free to the family, to the friends, to own circle. They should not be paid the brands. They should be paid for creation and distribution, but the affiliation remains authentic. So eventually, this is all about this. It is the more people will go to authentic influencers, the less overeating, overload, or whatever the term was.
Definitely. Ryan, last bite.
Sorry, last thing just on this. I think there's this misconception that, there aren't enough influencers in the ecosystem. And I think there's always influential voices. And I think that's what you need to focus on. I think the tyranny of measuring everything sometimes can very much get to me, in the sense of, we need someone that has this X amount of reach, but that also limits us in terms of, as a growing brand or a small business, or wanting to jump on board in terms of collaborating with influencers. There is a huge opportunity, especially amongst nano influencers who are being inspired by the people within their community and the people that they follow, who look up to as role models. And so there's always, and I think that the one thing that one of my mentors back in the days said to me, if you want to find them, you need to be able to participate in the culture that they are participating in. And so engaging in the events, engaging in the content, exploring and getting to know, because majority of the time everyone in this community knows each other and have worked with each other at some form, and there's always a new face, there's always an influential voice with a new perspective. And so my last thing is just participate in the conversation. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Brian, Ryan, to Stefan. Thank you for being such gracious panelists. Thank you to our audience, from Welsh to Wangaletu, for that last question. Cami, Terry, we see all of your questions. And for those that we never got to answer some of them, please note that we will then address those via emails, or do connect with our panelists through their social handles and also through their LinkedIn. Thank you all for joining us, and that's it for today. So give me 1 second. Sorry, Q&A is blocking my view, but essentially that's it from us for today. Thank you to all our speakers for giving your time and your minds as we double-clicked into digital influencer marketing, and to our IAB Insights series partners, Gumtree, Everlytic, and Bizcommunity. Thanks again for helping in giving this discussion the space and clarity it deserves. To our production teams, as always, love your work in making this as engaging and seamless of an experience. And to you all joining us from home or the office as we all start to reacquaint ourselves with boardrooms and open plan. We see you and appreciate you coming through. See you all for our final episode of the year on digital video marketing on the 25th of November, 2021. Have a beautiful rest of the week and good luck if you're in the running for the lorries, and goodbye.